last season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers shocked us all when they made it to the postseason and they won the NFC South title for the third straight year, their second consecutive season under Todd Bowles. And the way last year went, you thought that when they went 4-7, their season was over. But then they were able to win 5 out of their last 6 games, and they went to the playoffs. They destroyed the Philadelphia Eagles in the wild card round, and they got the Detroit Lions all they could handle in the divisional round. But going into this year, I think that the luck for Todd Bowles and the Bucs is about to run out. One big thing that I noticed about Tampa Bay last year is that they were 3-7 against teams that had winning records in the regular season. And Todd Bowles is one of those coaches that at this point he's proven that he's decent, but he's not a great head coach. He still has terrible clock management. He doesn't really make good in-game adjustments, but he's really fantastic when it comes to coaching up defense. But this was the same defense that got absolutely destroyed and obliterated by C.J. Stroud. So I think that how good he is as a defensive mind may be a tad bit overstated, but he's a decent head coach. But the thing with decent head coaches like Todd Bowles is that eventually there's going to come some years that they don't live up to expectation. And there's been mixed opinions about how well the Buccaneers are going to do this year. Some people feel they'll make it to the playoffs again. Other people feel they're in for a letdown season. I fall on that majority of people who feel this is going to be a season where the Buccaneers regress a little bit. Are they going to be terrible? No, but I definitely don't see them as a playoff team. Their last 2 seasons, they've only had 8 and 9 wins. Nothing spectacular. The biggest story of 2023 for the Bucs was the resurgence of Baker Mayfield. He was a Pro Bowler. He had 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and he was one of the biggest comeback stories of the NFL last year behind Joe Flacco. But the thing with Baker Mayfield is that, you got to ask yourself, why has he been on so many teams and so many years? Well, it's because he doesn't give you consistent quarterback play year in and year out. Look at how his career went with the Cleveland Browns. He had a really good rookie season. Year 2, he had a sophomore slump. Then he bounced back in year 3. And then in his final year with Cleveland, he ended up not being that good. And then they end up shipping him off to the Carolina Panthers. Then he bounced around with the Rams. And then he found some good footing under Dave Canales, who was their offensive coordinator last year. Dave Canales was the same guy who was responsible for Geno Smith when he had that year in 2022 when he came out of nowhere and everybody wrote him off, but he didn't write back. You saw how Geno Smith kind of regrets last year without Dave Canales. And you saw how well Baker Mayfield played with Dave Canales being his offensive coordinator. Well, now Dave Canales is gone to your in-division rival, the Carolina Panthers. And you replace him with new offensive coordinator Liam Cohen, who I'm really familiar with because the last couple of seasons, he's been the offensive coordinator for the University of Kentucky. Now, last season, he didn't really do a good job calling plays for Kentucky. Their offense was a major disappointment. And he comes from that Sean McVay coaching tree. And Sean McVay normally does have pretty good assistant coaches. If you hire them, they're normally pretty safe hires. But I don't view Liam Cohen as good as a play caller or as good as an OC as what Dave Canales was. Dave Canales has a really good track record. You saw how well Geno Smith played under his tutelage, and you saw how well Baker Mayfield played. And although Baker Mayfield had a really good season, if you watch the Buccaneers a lot like I've had, because I live in Florida and I don't pay $449 for Sunday tickets, so I'm always forced to watch the games that I get broadcasted to me locally. And I was always having to watch either the Jags, the Dolphins, or the Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers offense was really wonky at times. They would struggle for 3 quarters, but in the fourth quarter, they would be able to muster enough drives together where they could put some points up on the board. And with how good Tampa Bay's defense was, they were able to win games. But there were times when that offense looked really ugly when you never expected it to. Against the Carolina Panthers, they only scored, like 9 points in that game? Against the Detroit Lions. In that game, yeah, they were able to go tick for tack with them at one point, but there were times when they couldn't get anything going. That offense was not really as consistent as what the stats may show. And with you losing Dave Canales, Baker Mayfield has to learn a new system, and you wonder if him learning a new system is going to be a reason why his level of play ends up falling off a little bit. Because when he was with the Cleveland Browns, the dude had several new head coaches. And the key to a young quarterback being successful is stability. And Baker Mayfield never had that. This is somebody that's always been learning new systems, bouncing around on new teams with new head coaches, new coordinators. And now you put Baker Mayfield in the similar situation that he was in with the Cleveland Browns, learning a new playbook with new terminology when he just got to Tampa Bay a year ago and was doing the same thing around this time last offseason. Another issue that I have with the Buccaneers is that their interior of their offensive line still is a problem. Now, they did draft a really good center out of Duke, but their offensive guards are still not good enough. Okay, they signed the dude from the New York Giants. If you're signing anybody off the New York Giants and you have them labeled as a starter, you have some problems. And then they also have another guy that they drafted out of North Dakota State, Cody Mulch, I believe that's his name. That's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. You don't know if those guys are going to give you good guard play. And the biggest issue that Tampa Bay had is that they couldn't run the football in between the tackles. If Tampa Bay had to run the football up the middle, it was getting stopped every single time. And I have Rachaad White on all my fantasy teams. He was a really good fantasy back, but from a real life standpoint, the dude, every time he had to run the football, was always met with a defender in his face. He didn't have too many big explosive runs. And I don't see that changing this season with Tampa Bay. I still think that their run game is going to be a huge issue. And with you having a new offensive coordinator, I just don't see Baker Mayfield and this group offensively having the same amount of success this season that they had last year. Is the defense still going to be good? Yes, but this offense, I think the wheels could fall off this thing. And I see the Buccaneers having a season where they go 7-10, maybe 8-9 at best. They definitely feel more like a 6-11 team to me. Because to me, for me to really be sold on Baker Mayfield, I need to see at least 2 or 3 years of high-level productive quarterback play. And if you have followed Baker Mayfield throughout his NFL career up to this point, you will know that he's always one of those up and down quarterbacks. He'll have a good season one year, he'll have a down season one year, and then he'll bounce back the next year. They gave him an extension. He is a capable starter if you have the right pieces around him, and you do have talent. Buccaneers fans are going to say, well, JT, we still got good receivers. We're still going to have a good defense. It's not about talent all the time. Just because you have a good team doesn't necessarily always mean that you're going to play up to the level of talent that you have. The problem with Tampa Bay is that your last 2 years, you've only won 9 and 8 games despite the talent that you've had because your coach is just not that good. And with you having a new offensive coordinator, Baker Mayfield having to learn a new system, your offensive guard position still don't look that improved, your run game is still going to struggle. I don't see the Buccaneers being a playoff team this year. The luck, to me, has run out for Todd Bowles and the Bucs.